The night was almost silent when the last crew member walked out of the studio. The long day of shooting had finally ended, but the hallways still carried a faint echo of footsteps and distant voices. Sandra Bullock stayed behind, sitting on the cold staircase near the back exit. She rested her elbows on her knees and held her hands together as if trying to warm herself from the inside. She did not look tired in the usual way. She looked like someone who was carrying a thought too heavy to share, but too painful to keep alone. The dim yellow light above her flickered softly, as if it was struggling to stay awake just like her. Keanu Reeves walked around the corner quietly. He had stayed back as well to finish a few notes for the next scenes, but when he saw Sandra sitting alone, something inside him paused. He had worked with her for years, shared jokes with her, shared silence with her, and shared trust with her, but tonight something felt different. It felt like she was trying to disappear inside her own mind. He stood still for a moment, watching her from a distance, trying to understand if he should interrupt or if she needed space. But then he noticed her shoulders move slightly, as if she let out a soft breath that came from frustration or hidden fear. That was enough for him to walk closer. He approached slowly and sat on the step below her so she would not feel crowded. He did not say anything at first. He just sat there and let the quiet settle again. Sometimes silence tells you everything before words even begin. Sandra finally lifted her head and looked at him, and her eyes held a mixture of confusion and relief. She tried to smile lightly, but the smile broke halfway and faded into something more real and vulnerable. Keanu asked softly, almost in a whisper, if she was all right. She nodded quickly, but he could see the truth behind that small movement. She was not all right. She was pretending. He had seen this act before, not only in her but in himself. People like them knew how to hide their inner storms with calm expressions. They had learned it through life, through work, through years of trying to be strong for everyone else. Keanu leaned back slightly and rested his hands on the stair behind him, giving her enough space to breathe, but staying close enough to show he was there for her. After a long, quiet moment, Sandra spoke. Her voice was soft and shaky, like someone who had been holding something in for a long time. She told him she had been thinking a lot, and something inside her felt too heavy to ignore anymore. Keanu listened without interrupting, letting her shape her thoughts at her own pace. She looked down at her hands and touched her thumb with her fingers nervously. Then she asked a question that surprised him completely. She asked why he always looked calm even when life was difficult. She asked why he never showed when something was hurting him. She asked how he managed to stay steady when everything around him was falling apart. Keanu felt her words sink into him slowly. She was not asking out of curiosity. She was asking out of pain. Pain she was hiding from everyone else. He turned his head to look at her fully, and in that moment he realized something deeper. Sandra was not asking how he stayed strong. She was asking how to stop breaking apart silently. She was asking how to breathe again. Keanu took a slow breath before replying. He wanted to choose every word carefully because he could feel her heart waiting for something true. He told her that calmness was not something he was born with. He told her it was something he had learned the hard way. He explained that he stayed calm not because he felt peaceful, but because he felt responsible. Responsible for the people around him, responsible for the energy he brought into a room, responsible for not adding more weight to anyone else's shoulders. He admitted that sometimes he hid his own feelings, so others would not worry or feel helpless. Sandra looked at him with wide eyes. It was the first time he had ever spoken like this to her. He usually kept his emotions private, locked somewhere deep and unreachable. Tonight was different. Tonight he let the door open a little. She felt her chest tighten as she realized how much he had always carried without showing it, and suddenly she felt a strange mix of comfort and fear. Comfort because she was not the only one hiding pain. Fear because if even he struggled silently, maybe she was not as strong as she thought she needed to be. The hallway felt even quieter now. The silence wrapped around them like a soft blanket, but the air held a tension that came from unspoken truths. Sandra shifted slightly, unsure if she should continue or if she had already crossed a line. Keanu noticed her worry and gently reassured her with a calm look. He did not need to speak. His expression alone told her she could continue. She hesitated for a moment, then finally admitted something she had not told anyone. She said she had been feeling overwhelmed for weeks. She said she had been carrying a quiet fear that she would disappoint people. She said she felt everyone expected her to be strong and perfect every day, but inside she felt like she was losing her balance. She confessed that she had been hiding it from him because she did not want him to think she was weak or unstable. The words came out slowly, but once they started, she could not stop them. Her voice trembled. Her eyes watered. She was opening a door she had kept locked for far too long. Keanu listened closely. Every word she said hit him deeply. He had known her for years, but he had never seen her let herself feel this exposed. He felt an ache inside his chest, wishing he had noticed sooner, wishing he had asked more, wishing he had been there before things reached this point. He gently reached a hand toward her, not to touch her, but to let her know he was fully present. He told her quietly that she did not have to pretend with him. He told her that imperfect moments were human. He told her that she deserved to feel supported, not exhausted. But even as he said those words, something inside him stirred with an emotion he did not fully understand yet. He felt protective. He felt alert. He felt like this moment was more important than either of them realized. Something was building in the air, something that would soon reveal truths they both had kept hidden even from themselves. The night outside grew colder. The studio lights flickered, and Keanu knew that whatever happened next would change everything between them. This was only the beginning. The studio felt even quieter as the minutes passed. Sandra wiped the corner of her eye with the back of her hand, trying to hide the small tear that escaped, but Keanu saw it. He pretended he did not, giving her the dignity to collect herself without feeling embarrassed. He understood that sometimes the strongest people feel the most ashamed when they break a little. He had lived that life more times than he could count. He shifted slightly, moving to the same step she was sitting on. He did not move too close, but close enough so she would not feel alone. Sandra looked at him as if she wanted to speak again but was unsure where to begin. Her breath was slow and uneven, and she kept touching her thumb with her fingers like she needed something to hold on to. Keanu waited patiently, allowing her the space to find her rhythm again. His quiet presence was steady, like a safe place to rest emotions that had been wandering for too long. Finally she spoke, her voice low but clearer than before. She said she had been carrying a fear she did not want to share with anyone. She said she had been waking up feeling a pressure she could not explain. She said that every time she walked on set, she felt a strange voice telling her she might not be enough. She did not know where that feeling came from, but it was growing and she could not push it away anymore. She said she felt like she was losing her confidence piece by piece without understanding why. Keanu listened with full attention. He did not look away. He did not interrupt. He did not try to fix her emotions too fast like most people do. He knew that sometimes people do not want solutions first. They want to feel understood. He absorbed every word she said and felt a quiet anger rise inside him, not at her, but at the invisible pressure that had been crushing her silently. He wondered how many days she had walked around pretending everything was fine. He wondered how many nights she had spent overthinking her every step. He wondered how she managed to smile at others while falling apart inside. When she finished speaking, she lowered her head as if she had confessed something shameful. Keanu gently shook his head and told her softly that fear does not mean weakness. He told her that even the strongest hearts become heavy sometimes. He told her that she had been carrying a burden she never deserved to carry alone. His tone was calm, warm, and steady, like someone who had lived through storms and learned how to speak with quiet strength. But Sandra still seemed restless. She kept looking at the ground as if the words she really wanted to say were much deeper. Keanu noticed this. He leaned forward slightly and asked her if there was more she wanted to share. She hesitated, her expression tightening as if another truth sat behind her lips, waiting to break free. And then she finally said it. She told him that she had been hiding something from him for months, something she never had the courage to tell him because she did not know how he would react. Keanu felt the air change around them. It was subtle but powerful, the kind of shift that happens when someone is about to reveal something that can reshape everything. Sandra took a shaky breath. She told him that she had been afraid of letting him down. She said that every time she looked at him, she felt a pressure she created herself. She admired his calmness, his presence, and his quiet strength so much that she felt she needed to match it. She said she did not want him to see her as someone fragile or confused. She did not want him to see her as someone who needed saving. She wanted to be equal to the level of steadiness he brought into every room. Keanu felt something heavy land in his chest. He never knew she felt that way. He never imagined that his calmness, which he used to protect people, had accidentally made her feel like she had to hide her pain. He looked at her carefully, seeing her not as an actress or a co-star, but as a human being who had been quietly battling her own mind. He told her softly that she never needed to be perfect around him. He told her that being human was more important than being strong. He told her that he had never expected anything from her except honesty and presence. His voice trembled slightly when he said it, as if he was revealing a bit of his own heart too. Sandra looked at him with surprise. She did not expect him to open up in return. She knew he was a private person who rarely spoke about his deeper feelings. When she saw the sincerity in his eyes, her breathing softened and her shoulders relaxed as if a bit of pressure lifted from her. But then something unexpected happened. Keanu looked away for a moment, his jaw tightening slightly. It was rare for him to show such a visible reaction. Sandra noticed and felt a sudden worry growing inside her. She asked him if he was all right. He stayed silent for a few seconds, gathering the courage to speak the truth that had been sitting inside him for years. He finally turned back to her and said that he had been hiding something too, something he never had the courage to admit because he did not want to confuse her or complicate their friendship. The moment he said those words, Sandra's heartbeat quickened. She felt a mix of fear and curiosity sweeping through her. She leaned in slightly, waiting for what he would say next. Keanu told her that he also felt a pressure around her, not because she expected anything from him, but because he did not want to lose the trust they had built. He said he had spent years trying to stay strong in front of others, but with her, he always felt the urge to be honest. He admitted that he had been afraid to appear vulnerable because he did not want her to see him differently. He did not want her to think he was falling apart inside. Sandra stared at him in disbelief. She never imagined that he was hiding something similar. She never expected that he felt the same fear she did. Her eyes softened as she realized that they had both been pretending to protect each other from the same thing. They had both been hiding emotions for the sake of the other. The hallway felt warmer now, but the air remained thick with tension. Keanu kept his gaze steady on her, waiting for her to understand the truth he had just revealed. Sandra placed her hand gently on the step between them, not touching him, but close enough to show that she understood. Something invisible connected them in that moment, something they had both ignored for too long. The night outside deepened. The studio lights buzzed softly, and with every word that passed between them, a new truth unfolded. The truth that both of them had been hiding more than they realized. This conversation was not just opening old wounds. It was unlocking something that had been waiting to be spoken. And it was only the beginning of what the night would reveal. The night grew deeper as they sat on the staircase, and the studio felt like a closed world where only their voices and unspoken emotions existed. The rest of the building was silent, but inside this small corner something powerful was unfolding. Sandra kept her hand on the step between them, and Keanu noticed the small tremble in her fingers. It was not fear of him. It was the fear of revealing too much, the fear of losing control after holding everything inside for so long. Keanu leaned back slightly, not to distance himself, but to gather his thoughts. He felt a pressure growing inside him, a pressure that had nothing to do with the film or the long day. It was the pressure of holding a truth he had avoided for years. He had always believed that silence protected people, especially those he cared about, but tonight's silence felt heavier than words. He looked at Sandra carefully, studying the lines of worry on her face. He wanted to say the right thing. He wanted to be honest without hurting her. Sandra noticed the shift in his expression and felt her heart tighten again. She wondered if she had said too much. She wondered if her weakness made him uncomfortable. She wondered if he would now see her differently, not as someone strong, but as someone who had lost her way. She tried to hold herself steady, but her thoughts moved faster than her breathing. She finally whispered to him, asking if she had pushed him too far. Her voice cracked slightly, filled with a quiet fear she could not hide anymore. Keanu immediately shook his head. He told her she had not pushed him away. He explained that he was only trying to find the courage to share something he had kept hidden. He reminded her that she deserved honesty just as much as she had given it. Sandra looked down, unsure if she was ready to hear whatever he had been hiding, but something inside her wanted the truth more than comfort. He took a slow breath before speaking. He told her that he had been dealing with a different kind of fear. It was not fear of failing or fear of pressure like hers. It was the fear of opening up too deeply. He admitted that he had spent most of his life teaching himself how to stay calm because life had taken people from him that he cared about. He explained that every time he grew close to someone, a part of him worried they would disappear too. This fear made him hide his softer emotions, even from people he trusted. Sandra felt a chill run through her body. She had never heard him speak like this. She knew about his past losses, but she never understood how deeply they shaped him. She looked at him with gentle eyes, suddenly realizing why he always seemed so controlled and careful. He was not trying to be distant. He was trying to protect himself from grief he had lived through more than once. She softly said his name, and her voice carried a warmth that made him lift his head. She told him that it was all right to feel afraid. She told him that no one expected him to carry everything alone. She reminded him that he had people around him now who cared, who stayed, who were not going anywhere. He looked at her and felt something inside him soften. Her words were not dramatic or grand, but they touched a place inside him he rarely allowed anyone to see. He thanked her quietly, and his voice carried more emotion than he intended. Sandra noticed it. She felt her heart ache for him, not out of pity but out of respect. She never realized how much weight he had been hiding behind his calm expressions. The thought made her eyes water again. She looked away, trying to hide it, but Keanu gently reached out and placed his hand near hers, close enough to show support but far enough to not make her uncomfortable. She slowly moved her hand closer until their fingers touched lightly. The simple touch held more emotion than words. Neither of them looked at their hands, but both felt the connection. It was the first time in a long while they allowed themselves to be vulnerable at the same moment. The touch was not romantic. It was not dramatic. It was human. It was two souls finally admitting that they were tired of hiding. Sandra took a deep breath and said she wished she had spoken sooner. She said she wished she had shared her struggles before they grew too heavy. She said she had always believed that showing weakness would make her burden others, but now she realized that hiding it isolated her instead. She looked at Keanu and said she trusted him more than she trusted anyone else. The honesty in her voice made him look away for a second because the emotion in her words shook him more than he expected. He told her quietly that he trusted her too. He said that out of all the people he worked with, she was the one person he felt safe around. He admitted that he never told her because he feared she might misunderstand him or think he relied on her too much. He confessed that he valued their bond so much that he did not want to risk complicating it. Sandra leaned back gently, letting his words sink into her heart. She did not know he thought so deeply about their connection. She thought he stayed calm because he was naturally distant, not because he cared too much. The truth made her chest warm and her eyes soften. She told him she never once saw him as a burden. She never once thought he was relying on her in the wrong way. She told him that if she had known he felt this way, she would have tried harder to make things easier for him. The air between them felt warmer now, yet heavy with new truths. They had both opened doors that had been closed for years. Now they were standing in the space between honesty and fear, learning how to navigate it together. Keanu looked at the floor for a moment and then spoke with a voice that carried a quiet sadness. He said that sometimes he wished he could tell people how he truly felt, but he always stopped himself because he did not want them to see him as broken. He admitted that he had been afraid of showing Sandra this side of him because he did not want her to feel responsible for his emotions. He wanted her to feel free, not trapped by his vulnerabilities. Sandra moved her hand closer again and held his fingers lightly. She told him he was not broken. She told him he was human. She told him that strength does not come from hiding pain but from sharing it with the right people. And she reminded him that she was one of those people. Their eyes met again, and in that moment something shifted inside both of them. They were no longer two people sitting on a staircase. They were two hearts finally speaking the truth without fear. The tension between them softened into something warm, something real, something that had been waiting for years. The hallway felt different now, almost sacred in its silence. Every light seemed softer, every shadow felt gentle. The night was no longer cold. It was holding them together, letting them speak freely for the first time. And just when the air felt calm, something unexpected surfaced inside Keanu. A truth he had been avoiding. A truth deeper than anything he had shared so far. A truth he knew he could not keep hidden much longer. The silence between them grew heavier, but it was no longer the kind of silence that felt empty. It was the kind that carried meaning. It held the weight of every unspoken truth they had pushed aside for years. Sandra kept her fingers lightly resting near his, and Keanu did not move his hand away. The soft contact kept both of them grounded, as if their hands were holding together the pieces of their hidden fears. Keanu took another slow breath. He looked down at their hands and then looked away again as if he was fighting with himself. Sandra sensed something shifting inside him. She watched him carefully, her eyes full of concern but also patience. She did not push him. She knew that whatever he was holding back needed time to escape. She knew that he was not someone who shared easily. She knew this moment mattered. Finally, Keanu lifted his head and looked directly at her. His eyes were softer than before. They carried a truth he had tried to hide behind years of calmness. When he spoke, his voice was lower, almost trembling, and she immediately understood that this was something he had never shared with anyone. He told her that he had been struggling long before she noticed. He said that even though he always looked steady, he often felt like he was walking on a very thin line. He admitted that there were days when he questioned himself, days when he felt empty, days when he felt disconnected from everything around him. He said he hid those moments because he felt he had no right to be weak. He believed that people expected him to always be strong, always be calm, always be the steady one. Sandra felt her heart twist painfully. She had seen the world praise his calmness for years. She had seen people admire him for being grounded and unchanged. But she never imagined that the calmness was built over layers of quiet fears and silent battles. She moved a little closer and whispered that he was allowed to feel everything he felt. She said he did not need to pretend with her. Her voice was steady, warm, and gentle, as if she was trying to hold him up with her words. Keanu looked down again, trying to steady himself. He said there was something deeper he needed to confess, something he had buried so deeply that even he avoided thinking about it. Sandra tensed slightly, sensing this was the moment everything might shift. She waited, holding her breath without meaning to. He said he feared losing people, not in a small way, but in a way that shaped every part of his life. He explained that every time someone became important to him, his first instinct was to protect them not only from the world but from himself. He was afraid that if he let people see how much he cared, they might drift away or disappear like others had. So he stayed quiet. He stayed calm. He stayed composed so no one could see the deeper storm inside. Sandra felt tears rising again, but she blinked them back because she wanted to hear everything without interrupting him. She reached out and gently touched his arm, just enough for him to feel her presence. She whispered that he did not need to hide his fears from her. She said she was here, and she was listening, and she was not going anywhere. Keanu closed his eyes for a brief moment, taking in her words like someone finally finding a safe place to rest after years of walking alone. When he opened them again, a new honesty surfaced in his gaze. He told her that she was one of the few people he had ever allowed close to him. He said he trusted her more than he trusted most people in his life. And then he admitted something that made Sandra's breath catch. He told her that he often found himself watching her during moments when she did not realize it, not in a way that invaded her space, but in a way that showed how much he cared. He said he admired her strength, her kindness, her softness, and her courage. He said he watched her because she reminded him that people could be broken and still keep going. She reminded him that he was not the only one who hid pain behind smiles. Sandra felt her chest tighten with emotion. She had never expected him to say anything like that. She looked at him with wide eyes, her heart beating fast inside her chest. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked before the words could form. She placed her hand over her mouth, trying to control the wave of emotion rushing through her. Keanu noticed her reaction and leaned forward slightly. He told her that he had been afraid to tell her because he did not want her to feel pressured or uncomfortable. He said he valued their friendship too much to risk losing it. He worried that if she knew how deeply he saw her, she might pull away or feel burdened by his admiration. But to his surprise, Sandra did not pull away. She did not avoid his eyes. She did not retreat into silence. Instead, she reached out slowly and placed her hand fully over his. Her touch was warm, steady, and certain. She lifted his hand gently and held it between both of hers. Her voice was soft but clear when she spoke. She told him that she had never once felt burdened by him. She said that if she had known he cared this deeply, she would have opened herself sooner. She told him that she also watched him in moments he did not notice. She watched how he stood quietly when others were loud. She watched how he listened when others ignored. She watched how he carried himself with a calmness she wished she had. Her honesty shocked him. He stared at her, trying to process her words. The hallway suddenly felt warmer, as if the world around them shifted slightly in response to their truths. Their hands remained together, not with hesitation, but with the quiet acceptance of two hearts that had finally stopped hiding. Sandra continued speaking. She told him that she had been afraid of disappointing him. She felt pressure to match the steadiness he carried. She admitted that she wanted to appear strong because she admired him. She said she felt safest when he was around because his presence made her feel grounded. Keanu looked away for a moment because her words hit deeper than he expected. He took another slow breath and said her presence made him feel grounded too. He said he always felt calmer when she entered the room. He said that she was one of the few people who reminded him to breathe without trying. The moment grew heavy with emotions neither of them had planned to reveal. They sat there, holding hands, sharing a silence that felt safe and full of meaning. The night outside seemed far away. The studio lights hummed softly. Everything around them faded into the background. They were no longer hiding. But just when everything felt calm, a new shift passed through Keanu's expression. Something deeper, something he had not said yet, something that held the strongest truth of all. Sandra noticed immediately. She watched him closely, waiting for what would come next. He finally opened his mouth to speak, and the truth he was about to reveal would change the rest of the night forever. The air inside the hallway felt heavier than before, not because of fear, but because something important was about to break free. Sandra kept watching Keanu closely, trying to read the emotion in his eyes. His face was calm, but his eyes held a quiet storm. The kind of storm that comes before a truth someone has hidden for years. She held his hand gently, waiting for him to speak, giving him space but also giving him strength. Keanu swallowed slowly, his throat tightening with emotion. He looked at the ground, then at their hands, then at her. The way he looked at her was different. It was deeper, almost like he was letting her see a part of him he had never shown anyone. He took a slow breath before speaking, and Sandra felt her pulse quicken as she prepared herself for whatever he was about to say. He finally told her that there was a reason he always stayed close to her on set. It was not just comfort. It was not just trust. It was something deeper, something he had not allowed himself to accept fully. He said that she brought him a sense of peace he thought he had lost long ago. He confessed that when she was around, he felt a quiet lightness inside his chest, something gentle and warm, something he never expected to feel again. He said he tried to ignore it, but it kept returning every time she laughed, every time she walked into a room, every time she looked at him with her thoughtful eyes. Sandra froze for a moment. She was not expecting this. She felt her breath stop halfway. Her heart began to beat faster, but not out of fear. It was something else, something she could not name yet. She looked at him carefully, trying to understand what he meant, and then she asked him gently if he was saying what she thought he was saying. Keanu hesitated, his lips parting slightly as if he was unsure how much to reveal. He shook his head slowly and said he was not talking about romance. He said he did not want her to misunderstand him. He said what he felt was more like a deep connection, a bond that went beyond work, beyond friendship, beyond anything he could explain. He said she gave him hope. She gave him calm. She gave him a feeling of being seen without judgment. He said he had been afraid of telling her because he worried she might pull away if she knew how much she meant to him. Sandra felt her eyes fill with tears, but she did not cry. She held his hand a little tighter and asked him why he thought she would pull away. He looked at her with a softness she had never seen before and said that people sometimes leave when they realize they matter too much to someone. He said that fear had kept him quiet all this time. He said he did not want to lose her presence by telling her how deeply she affected him. Sandra's heart ached at his words. She shifted closer to him until their shoulders almost touched. She told him quietly that she was not going anywhere. She said she had stayed by his side for years, not because of work, not because of obligation, but because she felt something similar. She told him she always felt safer, clearer, and calmer when he was near. She said his presence made her feel like she was allowed to breathe, allowed to slow down, allowed to be human. Keanu looked at her with surprise. He did not expect her to say that. He had spent years believing he was the only one hiding this emotional truth, but now he realized she had been carrying a similar feeling. He took a small breath and his shoulders relaxed, as if a weight had lifted from him. He whispered that he wished he had known sooner. Sandra nodded softly and said she wished the same. Then her expression changed slightly, and she said there was something she still had not told him. She said she had a fear that was connected directly to him. Keanu's eyebrows lowered in confusion, and he sat up straighter, waiting for her to explain. She said she had always felt afraid of disappointing him. She said she admired him deeply, not just for his work, but for who he was as a person. She said she looked up to him in ways she never admitted. She said that every time he praised her or supported her, she felt pressure to live up to his expectations. She said she tried to appear stronger than she felt so he would never think she was fragile or unstable. Keanu's face softened completely. He reached out and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. He told her she never disappointed him. He told her she was stronger than she realized. He told her that he admired her resilience, her honesty, and her heart. He said that she had been a source of light for him even when she felt she was fading inside. Sandra lowered her head and took a shaky breath. She looked overwhelmed, but in a way that came from healing, not pain. She slowly lifted her head and looked at him again with new eyes. She whispered that she had never met anyone who made her feel understood the way he did. She said their connection scared her because it was too real, too honest, too deep to ignore. She said she had been hiding her feelings because she did not know how to carry something so important. Keanu leaned closer, listening to every word. He told her that she did not have to carry it alone anymore. He said that whatever this bond was, they could walk through it together. He said he was done hiding, and he wanted her to feel safe enough to stop hiding too. Something powerful shifted between them. It was quiet but intense. Their hands remained joined, their breath slowed, and the night seemed to pause for them. But just as things felt calm, Sandra's expression changed again. Something she had not said yet was still inside her. She looked away briefly, her fingers tightening around his. Keanu saw the fear return in her eyes, a fear deeper than anything she had shared so far. He asked her softly what she was still holding back. She hesitated for a long moment. Her breath shook. Her shoulders trembled. She blinked as if fighting back an emotion she did not want to release. Finally, with a voice barely above a whisper, she told him there was something she had been hiding from him for a very long time. Something that could change everything. Keanu's expression shifted with concern. His heartbeat grew faster. He asked her gently what it was. Sandra looked into his eyes with a mixture of fear, hope, and honesty. And then she said the words that would lead directly into the reveal of the entire story. Sandra's breathing grew unsteady as she looked at Keanu. The words she wanted to say were sitting on her tongue, heavy and trembling. She held his hand tighter without realizing it, and he felt the tension travel through her fingers. The hallway around them felt frozen in time, as if the world itself was waiting for her next sentence. He spoke softly, almost in a whisper, asking her again what she had been hiding. There was no pressure in his voice, only concern and patience. He wanted her to speak when she was ready. He wanted her to feel safe. He wanted her to know that whatever she said, he would not pull away. Sandra took a slow breath and closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, they were filled with fear and honesty. She said that she had been carrying a pain that she never shared with anyone, not even with him. She said she always pretended to be strong because she could not let people worry. She said she felt she had to be perfect because she feared that if people saw her breaking, they would walk away. Keanu felt his chest tighten. He squeezed her hand gently, encouraging her to continue. She said the thing she hid was not about pressure or expectations. It was something much more personal, something that lived deep inside her heart. She hesitated again, swallowing hard, and finally let the truth drop. She told him that she had been afraid of losing him, not in a romantic way, not in a dramatic way, but in a way that came from the soul. She said he was the one person who made her feel safe, understood, and respected without needing anything in return. She said she feared that if she showed her real pain, he would distance himself. She said she feared she would ruin the calmness he carried. She said she feared that her struggles would become a burden to him. Keanu felt a wave of emotion rise inside him. He moved closer until their knees touched. He placed his free hand gently on her arm. He told her she could never be a burden to him. He told her that her presence had never caused him pain. He told her that she had been one of the very few people who gave him a sense of meaning without asking anything back. His voice shook slightly when he said it, as if he was revealing his heart without a shield. Sandra's eyes filled again. She looked down and whispered that she had spent years fearing his silence. She said she misread his quiet nature and assumed it meant he was drifting away. She said she thought that if she opened up too much, he might disappear like others had. She said she did not want to lose the only person who made her feel balanced during chaos. Keanu inhaled deeply. Then he did something he never did before. He reached into the pocket of his jacket with slow, careful movements. Sandra watched him, confused. He pulled out a small folded paper, worn at the edges as if he had carried it for months. He unfolded it gently and placed it into her hands. She held the paper with shaking fingers and opened it. There was a short message written in his small, neat handwriting. It said, "If you ever fall, I will be the one who stays." Sandra froze, her breath caught in her chest like she had been struck by something soft but powerful. Her eyes scanned the line again and again. She looked at him with a mixture of shock, warmth, confusion, and overwhelming emotion. She asked him when he wrote it. Keanu looked down for a moment before answering. He told her he wrote it months ago, during a night when he saw her struggling silently but pretending she was fine. He said he wanted to give it to her that day, but he feared she might misunderstand his intention. He said he kept it with him every day since then, waiting for a moment when she needed it most. Sandra covered her mouth with her hand. Tears fell quietly down her cheeks, not because of sadness, but because she finally understood something she had never allowed herself to believe. He had been watching over her all along. He had been carrying her weight in silence. He had been present even when she thought she was alone. Keanu reached out slowly and wiped the corner of her cheek with gentle fingers. He told her she did not have to hide anymore. He said her fears were safe with him. He said her heart was safe with him. He said that whatever she felt, whatever she went through, he would be there. not as a hero, not as someone who needed anything back, but as someone who cared with quiet loyalty. Sandra leaned into him slowly, letting her forehead rest near his shoulder. She let out a soft breath that sounded like relief. Keanu wrapped an arm gently around her, not tightly, not possessively, but with full respect. He gave her space to cry softly, to breathe, to let go of the weight she had carried alone. They sat like that for a long moment, letting the emotions settle, letting the night wrap around them like a protective blanket. The studio lights hummed softly. The shadows felt warm. The world outside felt far away. Sandra finally pulled back enough to look at him. She told him that she had never felt so safe with anyone. She said she did not know how to thank him for everything he had done without even speaking. Keanu shook his head gently and told her she did not owe him anything. He said that her honesty was enough, her trust was enough, her presence was enough. The connection between them felt stronger than ever. Not romantic, not dramatic, but deeply human, deeply respectful, deeply kind. They stood up slowly from the staircase. Sandra handed him back the small paper, but he closed her hand around it and told her to keep it. He said she might need it again one day. She looked at him and nodded softly, understanding the meaning behind his gesture. They walked out of the hallway together, side by side. Sandra felt lighter, as if a storm she had been carrying for years had finally passed. Keanu felt more open, as if he had let someone see a part of him he had locked away. They did not need loud promises or dramatic endings. The truth was enough. Their late-night talk had revealed everything they had been hiding. But more importantly, it revealed that they had never been alone. They had been carrying each other quietly, gently, and silently for years. And now they finally knew it.